AEW has just been competing with WWE for very little time, but boy, do we have some news for you here on DPW. Today's topics, we are talking about WWE possibly taking AEW to court due to the Bash at the Beach trademark. If you guys didn't know, Bash at the Beach is the television episode name for a upcoming event that's taking place at AEW Dynamite. And we're also going to talk about NXT, in which they finally beat AEW this week in ratings. A lot of big things happening. We're going to talk about the good and the bad right here on Destination PW.
You have arrived at your destination.
Welcome back to DPW. It's your boy Tony at Tango with Ango on Twitter. You guys should be able to see that somewhere on the screen. It's like right there. Woo! Okay, cool. So you guys can follow me on Twitter at Tango with Ango. This is where I'm talking a lot about pro wrestling. You guys subscribe here for the content. I tweet there in real time. But today we got some major news. Cody Rhodes teasing legal trouble might be on the way from WWE. If you guys didn't know, Cody recently tweeted, "Sounds like I'll be going to court soon. Time to go suit shopping." And this was just right after the announcement that AEW's Bash at the Beach was announced. And of course, everybody is up in arms about this. A lot of people have taken to social media. A lot of people are unhappy. A lot of people are disappointed that it's probably been, 8 weeks or so since AEW has been going head-to-head with WWE, and WWE is possibly taking them to court. But if you guys didn't know, Cody Rhodes specifically owns many trademarks. He was able to snag some of those trademarks that WWE either forgot to renew or whatever it may be. And essentially, obviously, the Cody Rhodes family has a lot of history with some of these pay-per-view names and different things that have happened in pro wrestling, which is really interesting because this weekend, War Games is taking place, which I could totally be wrong. I could be messing this up, but I could have sworn War Games was a concept originally by Dusty Rhodes, but nonetheless, WWE has this concept down for NXT this week. MLW actually had some trademark issues with WWE, but they've pretty much just changed the name of the match and they've come up with something different. So obviously AEW could go that route, but when it comes to the WWE trademark, from my understanding, it looks like WWE only has access to the trademark The Bash. And of course, AEW's Cody Rhodes owns the trademark for Bash at the Beach. Obviously, Cody being the EVP of AEW, he would obviously grant this company to use it. It makes a lot of sense, yada, yada, yada. But it is really interesting that WWE might have a legal case because of the name The Bash. I don't understand why WWE would try to fight this, to be honest with you. It's just a silly little name. This is not even the name of a pay-per-view. It's just really, really weird. Really weird stuff, guys, and I really don't know what to expect. But it is happening in some capacity. And I'm not one to give out legal advice or whatever it may be, but I think it is just really silly and petty, to be honest. I'm a fan of both companies. I just don't think we really need to see some sort of legal action for something so small. It'd be different if they were trying to rip off WWE completely or entirely, but I don't really see it. And again, it's just a small thing. It's two companies. I know a lot of people are talking about the war between both AEW and WWE, but at some point you guys just have to stop talking about it and just really enjoy it, because last night NXT and AEW were incredible. And the idea that AEW wants to go this route with kind of presenting their shows with certain names, it's something that Impact has done for a really long time. I've always loved when Impact kind of branded out certain TV shows as pay-per-views. They usually had a bigger feeling to the show. I think AEW taking that little nudge from Impact definitely helps. More specifically, Bash at the Beach, it's taking place in Miami. It sounds like it may be an outdoor event. It could be really, really cool for AEW. And it's taking place in January, so obviously the weather is not going to be too bad. I'm excited to see what AEW does with it. Hopefully, all the legal stuff gets pushed aside. I hope it doesn't really mess things up for AEW, let alone Cody Rhodes, obviously. But it is really funny that right after the announcement of Bash at the Beach, this information has come out. Shame on WWE if that's the case, but there's so much that goes on. I really just want to see these companies have a healthy, competitive, I want there to be a healthy, competitive nature to this competition. And I don't know, sometimes I feel like it's not necessarily that way. But what is really interesting, speaking of competition, NXT has brought in over 900,000 viewers to finally defeat AEW. I believe this is week 8. AEW Dynamite last night had 893,000 fans who watched the show. And very, very interesting was when you look at the demographics of who was watching, AEW pretty much beat WWE in every key demographic except for one. but WWE still managed more viewers. Now, I want to talk about the ratings for a few minutes because I think a lot of people talk about ratings like it's the end-all, be-all. And I've seen a lot of people that are fans of AEW, they're making excuses. WWE had Becky Lynch and Seth Rollins, and they had all these people. But it ties into the WWE storyline right now. And whether WWE has a storyline because of AEW, it doesn't really matter. They're both wrestling companies. They're going to have to do things that might seem like counter-programming. But I think as a wrestling fan, you shouldn't really care about that. You should just care about the product itself. When Raw and SmackDown struggle, NXT does not. And NXT right now is on fire. And it was clear since day one with them going head-to-head with AEW that both shows were going to be really good. Regardless if AEW or NXT have more viewers, it doesn't matter because fans are getting a quality product. But of course, NXT finally got more viewers than AEW, which really wasn't even that significant. It really wasn't even that many more viewers, but they finally won. And a lot of people that support AEW and are anti-WWE, they've pretty much come through with the argument that WWE at this point is desperate. And this is where I want to open the question up to you guys. If we could all have a healthy conversation in the comment section, is WWE desperate? The fact that WWE had to use main roster members, like, is this something that we should have really anticipated? Somebody had tweeted, hey, it only took 8 weeks for WWE to call in the big wigs from the main roster. And while I get it, I think what we really got yesterday was a true awesome product between both shows. And both shows had a little bit of bad, and that's natural because you can't have a perfect show from top to bottom. I don't care who you are as a viewer. I don't care if you're the biggest and most popular wrestling podcaster. There is no such thing as a perfect show. There's always going to be something that disappoints somebody else, and that's just the way it is. Last night, AEW and NXT were great, and guess what? The last 7 episodes between both companies have been amazing. Even with the bad that are included, you overlook the bad because there was way more good than bad. So, nonetheless, NXT beating AEW might be big news for some people, but this is my reminder to you guys as viewers. Forget about the ratings. Forget about the demographics. Forget about who's watching it. If you're watching it and enjoying it, that's all that matters. Ultimately, you got DVR, social media. There's a million ways to watch this stuff. I personally did not watch either show live 3 weeks in a row. I've just, played Call of Duty. I've been live streaming. I've been doing stuff. I've been having a good time trying to balance out my life a little bit because there's so much wrestling. But then I go watch it on DVR and I enjoy it. And they're both great shows. I really digest everything that's happening and I enjoy it as a fan. And being a YouTuber, sometimes you don't get to enjoy it as a fan. So just kind of keep that in mind, guys. Like, don't worry about the numbers. Don't worry about the ratings. The legal stuff that's being brought up, it's all weird. To me, I think it's nobody's business. I don't think it really matters. I think it's petty. I think the competition aspect between them is great for wrestling. But I've said this a million times. If Coke and Pepsi could coexist, if Bellator and UFC can coexist, if these companies could coexist, so can WWE and AEW. And I firmly believe, I'll tell you the truth, I firmly believe that WWE, whether or not they beat AEW or not, they're both going to stick around for a very, very long time. So regardless of the ratings thing, you guys can keep talking about it as much as you want, but just remember both of these companies are going to do pretty well. And ultimately, hey, good for NXT, I guess. That's like a good moral victory because you got more viewers than AEW, but you didn't dominate AEW. And, every time AEW has beaten NXT, you did not dominate NXT. All right? It's just simple as that. That's the ratings. That's the facts. Was it cool to see Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch? Absolutely. Was it cool to see, the revival and Undisputed Era? Absolutely. But just keep in mind, a lot of those people that were on NXT from the main roster, storylines, they all make sense. They came from NXT. They invaded NXT because that was their home once before. It just makes a lot of sense. And right now in pro wrestling, I think the one thing that actually matters is not the numbers. It's not the ratings. It's whether the stuff that you're watching is logical, whether it's entertaining. And if it is, good for you guys. Enjoy it. I like watching TNA or Impact, whatever you want to call it these days. I think it's a great show. But I don't make it a mission to discuss numbers of Impact because I already know numbers aren't as high, but I still enjoy the product. And that's how I kind of feel with both companies here. If they're really that good, if everything was amazing in the pro wrestling world, I would ideally like both of these shows to be 2-3 million viewers. It's just not going to happen. The audience is the same. So, guys, I want to know what you think in the comment section down below. 2 big news stories, obviously, with WWE and NXT Of course, taking on AEW and finally getting a W against them. And then, of course, Cody and WWE possibly going to court, legal trouble, a lot of big stuff. Huge stuff happening in pro wrestling, guys. I think you all like the new format. So just let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.